Okay, hi. This is an unusual setup, and the reason for this setup is because I was quite annoyed with all the ambient sounds and the constant honking of the traffic outside my apartment. So I thought I'll quickly step inside my car and answer all these amazing questions. So, for new viewers, this is a series where I put up a post on my YouTube post section, and I request you guys to ask me any questions that you have. And I pick 10 to 15 best questions and I answer them by the following Sunday. And thank you so much for actively participating in this AMA series, ongoing AMA series, where I'm trying to build up a community so that people can help each other out by answering their questions and have some fun along the way. Thank you so much for your valuable questions, for taking the time out to ask me these amazing questions. It really helps me a lot to learn more about this content creation, and I get to add a little bit of value to your lives. Let's begin. Okay, first one. This might be a long one and also illegal, so please excuse. I'm 17 years old and I have a year of city experience and moderately long ride experience with the Super Meteor 650. Next year, when I'll be turning 18, I have a choice for my first bike as Interceptor 650. The bike with which I have been in love with for many years now. It looks nimble, it looks like it can cut traffic a little bit at least. This is my top choice for my first bike. The second choice I have is Himalayan 750. I've always loved the way the Himalayan looks and I love ADVs a lot. It's my favorite category of motorcycles and I love off-roading. But it's presumed to be tall and heavy. I will be in college by the time I get the bike. What do you think is better choice since you own both bikes? I know not 750, but still. Or something in between like the Bear. Or do you think I should downgrade from Super Meteor and get a 350 maybe? Or do you have any other suggestions? Sorry for the long one and thanks for all your videos. They're very entertaining and I've been following you for a long time. Okay, a lot to unpack here. First, you are 17. Get a valid driver's license. That's number one, and it is imperative that you do that. Number two, first choice of bike. You think that Interceptor, because it looks good, it can be a first bike, but no, these things will entice you. So my suggestion would be to not go for the Interceptor 650 because it's a little bit on the heavier side. So get yourself either an X-Pulse or an RTX 300 whenever that comes out. That should be your first bike. That can be your first bike. And if budget is a constraint, go for a Yamaha XSR 155 or a Pulsar 440. That'll be a really good one as well. Just get used to the way these bikes behave. Once you are really comfortable with these motorcycles, I know you said that you are comfortable with Super Meteor 650, but you're 17. This is nothing, this is not a jab at your age. It's just the legal limit of riding a motorcycle in India is it starts with 18. So once you get old enough to get a motorcycle license, then get yourself a motorcycle which you can maintain and manage its weight on the traffic, slow traffic, and then take it to tour as well. Whether you follow it or not, it's up to you. Moving on. I know I'm late to ask, but I couldn't resist. I've booked an Interceptor 650 Barcelona Blue. I would like to know if this bike can perform in all the terrains. Well, yes, it can perform. I am a living example of this question because I've taken my Interceptor to Spiti as well. However, the Interceptor is not branded as an ADV motorcycle simply because it is quite heavy. As in, to take it to off-roads, you need a bike that is light, that is agile, and has a decent center of gravity so that you can maneuver between those trails and those turfs pretty easily. While you can do off-roading on Interceptor 650, I, having done it, will not suggest you for it. Next one. Hey Shri, thinking about changing the tires on my Interceptor. Stock ones don't do justice to the bike. Any recommendations? Yes, there are loads. Look up Vredestein tires, look up Apollo tires, there are MRF, Seat, there's Eurogrip tires as well. So look into these brands and hopefully you'll find something that you really like. And Reese Moto as well. So yes. Next one. Greetings, sir. Hope my message finds you well and thank you for trying to answer our queries. Going straight to the point, my front fork suspension feels very bouncy and soft. I've got 8,500 kilometers on the bike and it's around 9 months now. Bike is almost due for its third servicing. Is it wise to take a look or consider changing the fork oil? On Going Classic 350 and I have to admit I've ridden it quite aggressive at times. Plus that tappet noise is louder than ever. For tappet, get the shims checked, inspected, and if they need replacing, replace it. However, about the suspension fork oil, the general rule of thumb is to replace it once every 1.5 years or 2 years. That is a regular maintenance practice. If the front suspension feels very bouncy and soft, and given the fact that the stock oil grade on the Royal Enfield lineup is a 10W weight oil, you might want to consider 15 weight oil. That'll make it less bouncy and more stable at speeds and at low speeds. Experiment it, and I hope you like it. Next one, moving on. Any plans for upgrading the Interceptor with an 865cc big bore kit? Would love to see someone as entertaining and informative as you go through the process. Edit. If not the big bore kit, then maybe at least some high compression pistons. Yes, both of these, if you can sponsor me. Other than that, the entire set will cost me more than 3 lakh rupees. And I've already spent upwards of 2.57 lakh rupees on my motorcycle. And I'm not planning to spend any more penny on my motorcycle. Besides that, the one thing that I have planned for this year, for the end of this month, is getting a full system exhaust on my Interceptor. That is about it. Nothing else. For performance related things, that's the top of the line thing. I don't want anything else on my bike. Okay, next one. Hey Shri, it's Chiranjeev. We made a bikers barn a few weeks back. I had the black Interceptor with Clubman's. I'm planning to convert my bike more of a scrambler build, as the riding position of my bike is way too committed for my riding style. I wanted to install mirrors that attach on the handlebar and go under it, like the stock mirrors, but upside down. Do you know where I can buy such mirrors? I also want to install the K-speed levers that you have on your Interceptor for a sleeker look, but they are way out of budget for me. Do you know any other ones that look similar, aren't as expensive? And also, what do you think about, instead of 15 teeth front sprocket, I change it to 14 teeth or 16 teeth one? Will there be any difference in mileage, and will there be a drastic change in torque if I change it to either one? Okay, lot to unpack here as well. Number one, if your bike is feeling way too committed for your riding style, I would say install a handlebar riser. There are a lot of these available on Amazon itself. I have an excessively expensive one, which is no need for anybody to install. There are good quality handlebar risers available on Amazon also. You just need to do a little bit of research on that. Second part of your thing, do you want those OEM mirrors, just not the right side up, but the upside down ones? I do know one international company that makes it, that is Bach Customs. That's a French company, but I have no idea how you can import those parts here. If you have any friends that are living abroad, you can request them to get it for you. Apart from that, sorry, you'll have to read about that as well. Then you wanted to change sprocket. So the manufacturers have researched tons of situations where they have come forward and recommended a 15 teeth sprocket on the front one. You go one teeth down, you'll increase acceleration bit, which means your pickup will be much more faster. Your low end torque will improve dramatically. However, the flip side to this is you lose top speed. So if you are someone who takes your bikes for tours for long and like to ride a little bit faster also, you might want to rethink that situation, that strategy. If you go one teeth up, it'll decrease your acceleration, it'll decrease your pickup, decrease your low end torque. However, it'll increase your top speed a lot more. The same goes for the rear sprocket as well. So there is a lot of permutation and combination. I tend to not get into the details of it way too much because the manufacturers have already set those things up. However, if you are a motorcycle enthusiast and want to churn out performances out of your motorcycle, and if you ride your bike only on track, yes, by all means, go ahead and experiment. And last bit, you wanted K-speed levers. Check out Road Power Customs. But generally speaking, the adjustable levers will cost you about 6,000 rupees or maybe 4,000 rupees. That's as low as that can get. Other than that, nothing else. I hope this made sense. Thank you so much for asking a good question. Any third-party suggestions for spoked rims for GT650 Interceptor? I saw Road Power Customs had these Takasago rims available, but I'm not sure how good those are for this bike. I'm looking for sturdier wheel with good looks and tubeless possibility, either out of the box or with Outex kit maybe. So, yes, Takasago rims are phenomenally good. They are very lightweight, but they also have an option for you to buy those rims from the factory as tubeless conversion already. You'll have to look into those, and yes, those rims are very much durable than the OEM ones. These are XL Takasago rims, which you're talking about. Takasago is another leg in this XL brand. XL is a brand, Takasago is a sub-brand, I would say. But an Interceptor already comes with an XL rim. If you see your rim closely, it'll be Excel written on all over it. Takasago ones are much more lighter, much more durable, and yes, go for a tubeless conversion kit from the manufacturer itself. They do it. Next one. Is it worth installing a tubeless kit for new Classic 350? Factory installed are tubeless tires with tube inside. Only got around 3 to 4 punctures in 9 years and 50,000 kilometers on the previous Classic 350. Tube versus tubeless, any advantage apart from puncture repair? Ride, comfort, handling, braking, use case, only short trips and local rides, no long rides. The advantage is primarily that you don't have to worry about punctures. You don't need to do that when your wheel is tubeless. If you are going for a tubeless conversion on a spoked wheels, which makes your bike much more durable in terms of riding it on off-road patches, bad roads essentially, because spokes are the best in terms of taking a lot of beating. Consider these spokes as a mesh that is between your hub and your wheel. When you go over any undulations or any off-road patch, these spokes will expand and contract a little bit, giving you that tiny bit of shock absorbing ability to you. And even if one of the spokes breaks, you can replace 1 or 2 spokes easily. In terms of having an alloy wheel, which when it breaks, the entire wheel has to be replaced. That's the superior advantage of spokes over alloys, always. Apart from that, nothing much. It's up to you if you want to do it or not. For solo rides, how do you usually pick a stopping point or destination without overthinking it? Do you always plan a place to stop or just ride and decide along the way? How to enjoy solo riding without overcomplicating it or overthinking it? If you don't want to overcomplicate it or overthink it, plan the ride much before. Plan it extensively down to the T. However, give yourself a buffer time. Like I have X amount of time to reach from point A to point B, and in that time, I'll give myself to explore some places on the way that really fits my style or my hygiene, whatever it is, and allow yourself that much time to explore these places and options. This will give you enough leverage to enjoy your ride as well, because there's only one objective in mind, that you need to reach from point A to point B in this much time, and give yourself some slack. Take breaks once every 150 kilometers. Take a break for 15 minutes. Stretch, relax, drink some water if you want to. Do not eat heavy. That's my go-to thing. Other than that, that should be plenty enough. Next up, what's up with RE opting for semi-synthetic engine oil for Himalayan 450? Which one do you use? How does synthetic perform? Is it safe for the engine? And if shifted towards synthetic, will it void the warranty in any way? I don't think that it would void the warranty. Let me start by saying that. You can put any oil that you want. However, it should be within the limits that the manufacturer advises you to put it in. As in, what I'm trying to say is, if the manufacturer advises you to go for a 10W40 oil, you can go one grade up, 10W50 oil. That's it. The second question was, what's up with RE opting for a semi-synthetic engine oil? Semi-synthetic blend is usually a blend of synthetic oils and organic ones. This is primarily to do some cost cutting. That's it. There is no other reason. They're not harmful. They're not that good either. But they are just sufficient and adequate for you to make you reach from point A to point B. That's just it. Synthetic oils are superior in every way. They are engineered for churning out performance, and they are made to last long on your motorcycle, which is why the service interval is either 1 year or X amount of kilometers. This is a lot in terms of bang for buck. Synthetic oil is best. What I'm using 10W50 7100 grade Motul engine oil for my Himalayan 450. My dad owns a 2015 Royal Enfield Bullet 350. He recently had an injury, so the bike hasn't been ridden much. It's been sitting unused for over 3 weeks. We live in a fairly remote area, so experienced technicians are hard to find. The battery is completely dead and the bike only has a kickstarter. He's tried kickstarting it many times with no success. I removed the spark plug to check it and it looked almost perfect. I then considered removing and cleaning the carburetor, suspecting fuel-related issues, but I wasn't confident enough to proceed further on my own. I'd like to know what's the best next step would be in the situation, except towing her to the garage. And yeah, new subscriber of yours, binge watched all your videos, love them, keep going strong. The good part about this is you can use the motorcycle with the kickstart. However, if that is not helping, the second option is first put the bike in second gear, then take the help of two guys I would say, and ask them to push the bike forward. As soon as it goes up to 20 km/h speed, just release the clutch and give the throttle. the bike will come back to life. Ideally, it should. If it doesn't, the only one option is to tow it out. But try this method and it will start. And then keep it started for like 10 minutes because like you said, the bike hasn't been started in a really long time. So that really helps the relays and all to charge the battery very nicely and then use the bike as needed. Kickstarter was really good. I missed that. It was, yeah, classic things. Next one. I have a habit of looking down while riding my motorcycle instead, keeping my eyes on the road ahead. I've tried correcting it a few times, but after a few minutes, I catch myself looking at the speedometer again. Do you have any other suggestions to help fix this? The way I look at my speedometer is I don't do this. That's dangerous. So you need to get into the habit of doing this. I'm just using my eyes. I'm not using my neck. That's what I do. And yes, train yourself to look far ahead, not right ahead. I've spoken about this in one of the reels that I just posted on Instagram a couple of days ago. Yeah, just train yourself to look right ahead. That should really solve your problem. Practice, practice, practice. Next one. Hey Sri, hope you're doing well. I want to buy a pair of riding boots under 10k rupees. I'm confused between the Trip Machine and the new Royal Enfield Wanderer WP boots. My purpose is to do long touring and daily commute. Both I want something best of both the worlds. Can you suggest me what to go with? And suggest some other options too. Thank you. If you have the budget for Trip Machine Brute boots, close your eyes and go for it. Those are fantastic. You want validation? Look at this. I'm wearing it all the time. Trip Machine boots are really, really good. This is not a paid ad. I just love those boots. There are other boots also available in the market, but I've not tried those, so I can't really speak about those. They are comfortable because my friends have been using those. I used to use Royal Enfield boots for riding, but when I switched to Trip Machine, there's no going back. Nothing against Royal Enfield, but they make good motorcycles and okayish amount of riding boots, I would say. If compared with these are much, much more superior. That's what I would say. That's about it. I've answered most of the questions. I've answered 15 questions, to be honest. Thank you so much for asking these fantastic questions. I also get to learn a lot when you ask me these insightful questions because I do my reading and my research. So that really gives me a lot of motivation to make more content for you guys. So thank you so much for asking these amazing questions and actively taking part in this Q&A series. Yes, if you're new to the channel and if you watch this video till here, do consider giving the thumbs up. That really helps me motivate to make more content for you guys. And you might consider subscribing as well. Till then, I'll post a question again on Monday. Ask me anything that you want to, and I'll pick up 10 to 15 questions and answer those by next Sunday. Thank you so much. This is Sri.